Hello. Lesson 4, personal influence. It's been a couple days since I've done anything with the series. We went over lesson 3 or part 3 last time. Today we're getting like a lot of rain and it's nasty out. And all I've done, I have to do this show to feel like I'm productive today because me and my dog have just laid in bed all day. Which is great to do sometimes. I live a very active lifestyle, but we chill out today. We chilled out today. It's raining, do some reading, now do my show. So this is lesson 4 on personal influence. And if I seem a little, it's going to take me a while to get into the groove because I've been, I kept my room dark. It's dark outside. Windows are open. So it might take me a second to get into the groove here, but we'll get there. And so will Luke. Luke's here today, my beautiful German Shepherd. So, lesson 4, personal influence. There he is, saying hi. Lesson 4, personal influence. So, mentative influence. Mentative influence consists in the induction of mental states in other persons. The induction operates along 2 lines. 1, the line of mental suggestion, which we've already talked about. It requires a physical agent. And 2, through mentative currents, which do not require a physical agent but would produce effects on the mind with physical agents or senses. So basically mentative currents can come from physical or mental. They're mostly come from mental states that induce mental currents that induce certain mental states in other people. This section deals with personal influence by both suggestion and mentative currents. There's a lot on personal magnetism in this section on personal influence. So let's get started. Mental suggestion and personal magnetism. What are they? In mental suggestion, we know a physical agent is necessary because the impression is made through the physical senses. So body language, tone, which is important. We'll talk more about that in this section. Those are physical agents. Hand gestures, I said, tone of voice, just words, which are symbols. We discussed that in the last section. And then personal magnetism has no physical agent, where no physical agent is necessary. The impression is made on the mind through the 6th sense. So you know that when someone has personal magnetism or magnetism, there's just something about them. There's nothing specific. Maybe they just have an air about them. The impression is coming from the vibration and the currents of mentative energy. So it's more of a vibration that you're getting from them. And we'll discuss how you do that and how you can recognize that in other people. The 6th sense is the pineal. The pineal gland receives the vibration of mentative energy or gives off the vibration. Here's the big law, and Luke's being annoying. Hi, bub, you're being annoying, buddy. You're starting just when I do my show. So, the law. Here's the big law of this section. The manifestation of a physical action tends to induce the mind of the one performing it. The mental state is associated with the physical agent. And this is important in you when you're trying in autosuggestion and in mental architecture, what we'll get to later. But a very important law. I'm going to read it again. The manifestation of a physical agent tends to induce the mind of the one performing it. So if I want to induce an angry state, I do this and I'm angry. And I may not actually be angry, but if I do that enough, then I can get myself angry. Or if you're angry and you want to be calm, then you breathe slowly and you move slowly. And vice versa, a mental state can actually act on a physical agent too. So it's a vice versa type thing. Physical action, mental state, suggestion, and telementation are all linked. They act and react to each other in our interactions throughout the day. That's definitely true. In other words, act and feel. So if you act and feel the way you want to be, so it will be. A strong mental state will manifest physical, and a strong physical state will manifest mental. So this is unconscious, and you get a reaction from others based on your own mental state and physical reactions to that mental state and vice versa. The word mental magnetism comes from the word mage, which we've discussed before, signifies the esoteric priesthood or the magians or the magi, and then mental means of the mind. Personal magnetism. The use of mentative currents and suggestion to bring about certain emotions, feelings, desires, and actions in other persons. Again, the use of currents and suggestion to bring about certain emotions, feelings, desires, and actions in others. A good example of this is political leaders. They'll be confident and they'll be skillful and play on the emotions of people. The magnetism and suggestion spreads over the body of the people until they become a mob possessed of fixed ideas that have taken possession of them. Like with the mask thing, people aren't really using their rational minds with this. They're being controlled by their emotions. There's a lot of fear being put into this. These doctors that are really just politicians are acting so confident, telling you what you must do, even though they flip-flopped, and it's okay to flip. So sometimes it's okay, I've done this a lot. I thought a certain way in my life, and then I've changed. That's okay, but nobody's, with the mask thing, I always go back to the mask thing because I think it's absolutely ludicrous and it's causing me a bit of annoyance. But these people, the magnetism and suggestion spreads all over the people, like I said, and they become obsessed mob. Families are split by factional differences and hatred reigns where love formerly, I know, well, in my family, we have some people I agree with and some people I disagree with. We use more our rational mind, so nobody's angry. There's no anger when we have our discussions. We're actually pretty civil. There's people in my family who I disagree with, and we can be civil. We're evolved enough, all of us are evolved enough that we're civil and we can have the discussions. But the problem is, when I have the discussions with, I'm thinking of a person in particular, and he will know who I'm talking about if he watches this show, but he never has any evidence. He just says, because he said so. And then I say, well, where's the controlled research? I have controlled research on the masks that they're ineffective. Upstairs, there may be controlled research that say they're effective. I haven't seen it yet. And these people have nothing. And these doctors never put out controlled research, but they're playing off this fear, and they give out such all these institutions are giving out such confusing information that and I even had someone say, so what happens is it bypasses the logical mind and gets into the fear. So here's the thing. The people play their part year after year, being swayed by emotional excitement, as in this case, rather than reason, thought, or intelligence. And the men who pull the mental strings grin to themselves and say, what fools these mortals be. I definitely can, you can't blame these people. You can't blame the people who are in control because everybody else is following for it. And there's this maxim of law that says, he who would be deceived, let him be deceived. Now, I don't agree with that, and I don't follow that motto, but I can't blame these people. And again, they prepare their sheep-like followers to again dance to the tune of my party, right or wrong, my party. I like that saying. But I hope with my viewers, maybe we're creating a defense here, and there's nothing wrong with having an emotional side. That's important to human nature, and that's a power given to us, that emotional desire side. But we have to use, that's why there's a polarity, and we have to use both sides, that willpower, that motive force, to balance it out so that we become a whole or holy being, and we can function properly in this world without being controlled by others, but being the ones in control of our own destiny. Infectious enthusiasm. This is a big one. And I see this, I watched a Trump rally yesterday, and it was very interesting. And, I agree with him on some things. I don't agree with him on others. But when people join in what I call mobs, they can allow themselves to be carried away by the personal magnetism and suggestibility of the more enthusiastic member performing in what normally would be nightmarish acts. There are no nightmarish acts, but, so this is caused by the emotion or emotive pulse. So when you're at one of those rallies and you say something, even if it's not true or it's not necessarily good, you have people there, especially at let's say a Republican rally or any, whatever side, but you get caught up in the mob, you get caught up in the groupthink, and, no matter what somebody says, you'll agree with it because everybody's in agreement, and there's that groupthink, and everybody's together, and you get caught up in the mob, and there are mentative currents going on, and And the leader, Trump, no matter what you think of him, he's a great speaker, and he's very influential. It's that simple. So, you can see it there that people get emotionally involved in their motive pole or their willpower pole. A cure for this would have your motive pole, and I'm not saying don't join in and have fun and get along with the crowd, but just make sure you have your motive pole or willpower on guard to resist the emotive pole. So you need this balance, and the will should be on guard against the personal magnetism, who in personal interviews, which is one-on-one, seek to mold the desires of others as to work their will upon them. So we're going to discuss cause and effect regarding personal influence. So the artful mentator. So he obtains the voluntary attention of others, and thus holding his will engaged. The engaged crowd and holding his emotive pole of mind, the engaged crowd by holding their emotive pole unguarded. Remember, the emotive pole is the desire force, and when that's unguarded, he can pour in his meditative currents and suggestions, or both, into the emotive pole of the listeners, and he thus induces desires, emotions, feelings, which act as motive forces, which act to affect the will or the motive force, causing them to act according to the suggestors or the mentator's will or wishes. So basically what that's saying is, by using suggestion or mentative currents, when a crowd's guard is down, they can be easily affected by these suggestion and these mentative currents of this strong-willed, strong desire-forced individual. The person is rendered unable to reason correctly or intelligently. His will is on vacation in these cases, and his reason, swayed by his desires, emotion, and feelings, thus induce the necessary will being lacking. In the case of mental contagion, influence spreads from mind to mind. So in a lot of these, it doesn't even have to be in a crowd. It can be with this mass stuff. I mean, it's a mental contagion. It's like people just aren't thinking for themselves. The self-protection or remedy is will. Surround yourself with an armor of willpower. Always. Always. Logic, reason, willpower. That's not to say there's not a place for the emotive force or the desire force or the will or the emotive pole. But you need both. You need both to be in control of your own destiny. And this will shield you and return to the sender. Well, the selfish currents will be returned to the sender and will be swept back in a whirlwind of his own raising. The next section of personal force. Strong mentative energy along the lines of the motive polarity or willpower becomes magnetically, speech impediment, Brad, positive, and vice versa. Developing will and principles of this subject will help with being influenced or hypnotized. So if you develop your will force, then it'll help you be on guard, and it'll help you from being influenced by other people, and for you to control your own destiny and not to be deceived by deceivers. The magnetic man has an air about them that gives the suggestion of self-confidence and fearlessness. He has an inward power or force about him. And it's interesting, somebody that's truly like this is not cocky or arrogant. Is not cocky or arrogant. They are calm, poised, conscious. They have strength and confidence. They feel that. And I feel this, I've always felt this way about myself. I'm sorry, I don't mean it in an egoistic way, but I've always felt like there's something in me that gives me strength and firmness unknown to the majority. I've just always felt like that. And when I'm around, it's always kind of brought me down when I'm not around people like that, because they just expect you to think like other people and understand like other people, and you really kind of feel like you're on a meta level. That's just me being honest about how I feel. I don't feel like I'm above anybody. I just feel like I'm on a different frequency, so to speak. The magnetic man has this inner consciousness. So I've always felt like that. Whether people think I'm magnetic or not, that's not for me to decide. But I know how I feel inside, and I know that I've always felt like there's something that I have that it seems like other people don't. And I know that I've always felt like there was this force behind me, protecting me no matter what I do and helping me on my path, especially more recently. But I've always sort of felt that way. I just haven't gotten conscious of it until recently. And, you know, I don't like talking about me that much because it's not about me, or it's about the message. But if I can give an example of what I've gone through or how I felt to help you, then I'm doing my job. The next section is the universal will. We've talked about this universal mentative energy, but there's an infinite internal energy, like I've said, that all personal minds and manifestations are centers of this consciousness. So we are all, centers of this universal consciousness. Okay, and we can learn to control this universal will and to do our bidding with it. This infinite internal energy and its manifestation towards one pole of its energy resembles a universal will, since its inner energy is yet unknown. And I've discussed a little bit about, in section part 2, about the proton and how the proton contains the same energy density and inner information as the universe, and that it's the universe through the proton and the Planck units, but I didn't get that in that much detail, kind of sends energy or information throughout the universe. And that's what energy really is information when you get down to it. And that's why they say the universe is a matrix, because it's kind of really, everything is energy, and energy is actually information. But anyway, that's beyond, you know, that might be another series of videos. But this infinite and eternal mentative energy and its manifestation towards one of its poles resembles universal will. I've already said that. We may think of it as a universal willpower. So there's a universal mentative energy, and part of that is a universal willpower. And the more positive, and I know this for a fact because everything seems synchronized in my life now, but the more positive one becomes in mentative magnetism, the closer one comes to this universal will, and the closer to this universal will, the more positive one becomes. It's action-reaction. And it goes from the biblical saying, to him that hath shall be given. So as you become more positive with this energy, willpower, you connect with it, and it's positive, you're positive, and you kind of feed off each other. So once you have, more will be given. So you got to get in touch with this energy. Meditation's important. And I think I'm going to do after I'm done with this series, something on just small meditative practices. Nothing, I do some crazy stuff right now, but I think that'll help with this. The quality of positive magnetism draws one to universal will, and this nearness to it renders one more positive. So you can, this positive magnetism is something that can be developed. Some people are born with more than others, but you can always develop it. You know, so it's just something that takes time sometimes, something that needs to be developed, and you'll start feeling it, really. When one uses this universal will and allows the energy to flow through, one will have a reservoir of will, power, and energy backing them up. But if conceit arises, and I don't know that this is true yet, so I'm not going to let conceit arise, and one thinks it's all personal strength, one will lose this reservoir of universal will, and a barrier will be brought between them. And I think that's why ultimately the ones that want to control and that are evil in this world, who move, there's nothing wrong with ego, but when somebody is just, because we need the I aspect of ourselves, but when somebody operates from a selfish form of ego, they cut themselves off from this, which is why I ultimately think these kinds of people lose out. However, I think they're the people that they control tend to be ignorant of this, and they do their bidding without even knowing it. That's another subject. Every positive man feels like he has something in back of him. Like I said about myself, I always feel like that, and this causes him to manifest the air of calm, positive power, self-confidence that's noticeable in such a man. Now, I've always kind of felt like this, but I wouldn't say I've always been calm and positive. I had points in my life, and this is how I know anybody can kind of develop themselves. I had a horrible temper. I wasn't really confident, but I had an ego, which I guess fake it till you make it. But now I'm very confident without the selfish form of ego. We all have ego. We all have the I aspect of ourselves. That's what individuates us, and that's a positive thing. We just don't want it to be a service to self type ego. Magnetic mental image is the next section. Cultivate an image of universal will. Think of it as an ocean of power, and I'm thinking of this even right now, in which you live, move, have your being, connect to it, feel it, connect to it, feel it, and you'll gradually open up to it. Like I feel it, it's amazing. I can feel it right now. Try to feel it. I feel like the energy, it's a calm but powerful form of energy, and you can feel it. It's amazing. Really, I mean, I'm obviously, I don't polish these videos and I'm genuine, but you really can feel this energy. While the will is cold, remember the will is cold, keen, and powerful. The desire force is strong, also strong in the magnetic man. No matter how strong the will, unless you have that desire, the will will mean nothing, because you must want something before you can attain it. You must want to become personally magnetic, or become a magnetic man/woman. You know what I mean? You must want to become magnetic before it can ever happen. So even people, here's what's interesting. Even people that say they get rid of desire completely in their lives, like people that are from the yogic tradition, and I tend to follow, these, or the Buddhist traditions. The truth of the matter is even you must desire not to have desire. You see what I'm saying? So that desire force always must be there in some way. It's just really a question of what you desire. Do you desire things of the material world? Do you desire things of the spiritual world? Or do you desire maybe a little bit of both? There's no right or wrong answer, but the truth is, no matter what, you always have to have desire for something to before you can have the willpower to do it. So that's something that's very important to remember. Universal mentative energy is strong, but does not appear to have attributes until it is directed by a mind. The personal mind center of the conscious mind, it's the consciousness created desire force that makes things happen, or one manifests in the physical. So what this is saying is so the way I would look at it, and I'm thinking about my thing with the proton, that there is this mental energy in the universe, and we're centers of that energy, and we can bring it down and control it, but we have to have both the desire and the will to do that, to direct it properly. So we're mental centers of this energy, and so we help bring things into manifestation. The whole proton thing, connecting in a hologram and being a fractal of the entire universe and carrying the information, that just carries information and transmits it back and forth. We, through our desire, actually are centers of that energy and can control it and manifest it. Another way I like to look at it is, say we want to create a future, what we do is see that future, and this we get into in mental architecture and telementation, but we see that future as if it already happens. Because remember, everything is in the now, and then there are several different possibilities that are flashing in and out of where our lives are going to go. But when we create that, when we feel the feeling as if something's happened, we lock in that potential. We lock in that quantum, as some people like to call it, potential. But we'll get into that more later. Desire force is life force, the creative force in nature. It's the feminine principle that gives birth and stirs the will into action. That's a good way of thinking it. The magnetic man has a great deal of desire force and wants to do certain things and wants to do them very much. Remember that. You have to desire something very strong, powerfully, and then you have to bring out that powerful will to make it manifest. Desire force gets combined with will force, and wonderful things are accomplished. You can feel a desire force emanating from a man with desire. He can draw the things he wants towards him with intense energy. This force drives, draws, induces, and pulls. I've seen the kind of information that I've pulled towards me. I've never thought that it even existed. Like the kind of technology that I wanted to pull towards me. I didn't even believe it existed. And by the way, I put it on my Facebook page, and I have to give you the information on my Facebook page because I've got a lot of good information on that page. And I didn't plan it that way. I joined Facebook because I wanted to get out information. And I thought I was going to put it on my State of Atlantis page, but I put it on my Brad Herson page. The State of Atlantis page is going to evolve as we go. Anyway, so when something is desired, one must constantly keep the image in front of him. I have a technique for that, actually. The motive and emotive poles must be charged. This will change and shape the energy. Voice and tonal control are important. In the magnetic man, when I do my prayers every morning and every evening, I actually do it with my Pythagorean tuning forks. I do them binaurally. Expressions are important too. A vibrant, resonant, and expressive voice, confident walk, expressive, soulful eyes, at times stern, at others tender, and a powerful glance are all important to developing this. And the reason is, remember, the way we act, the way we talk, the way our body, the way we hold our posture, all has an effect on our mind. Even the way I can't forget the way we breathe. That's one of my main things. So these all have an effect on our mind and how we act. And even if we have a bad habit or we tend to get angry, if we start really controlling our breath, and maybe, I tend to talk fast. I'm even slower now, generally. I'm slowing myself down now, but the way I talk now is way slower than it was a year ago. I was like this, but then I've practiced my breathing and I've slowed myself down. I've worked on my tone. I've always kind of had the hand gestures. So here's the secret of influence. Influence lies in mental states. The outer reflects the inner, and the inner reflects the outer. Cultivate connections between mind and the universal will, the universal mentative energy, then your will becomes so strong that the outward expression will come of themselves. In the first steps of attainment, it is important for the student to pay attention to the outward characteristics. Quiet, as it will help make a clearer mental path for the acquisition of the desired mental states. Quiet! Use autosuggestion by using outward characteristics associated with a mental state. And here are the underlying principles of this section. The underlying principle is mentative energy. Mental states are exhibitions of mentative energy. Mental states can be original or induced. Some mental states aren't your own. They're being induced. Probably even in me, who studied on this. People suggest things into you all the time. But you got to sit back, be logical and rational. Induced mental states are caused by the suggestions or mentative currents of others. Suggestion operates via acquiescence, imitation, association, and repetition. Mentative currents are waves of vibrant mentative energy emanating from people's minds and carry vibrations of mental states. Those vibrations induce similar mental states in the minds of the people within the field of induction. There are two poles of mentative energy, the emotive pole, which is the desire, feeling, emotion, and the motive pole, which is the will, acting force. Desire force and willpower are the two forces. In personal influence, the mentator pours out his mentative currents generated by his will and or desire in a directed manner or in a general way in a personal interview, thus directing the mind of others by induction. This is done by mental suggestion, physical agents, which mitigate the effect. Personal atmosphere. Oh, we're almost done. Okay. Personal atmosphere. This depends on mental states and results from emanating mental currents. The personal atmospheres can have profound effects, and magnetism derives more from the personal atmosphere than force. The next section will be the longest section. It'll be the science of telementation, which is very interesting. But that is a wrap on personal influence. And we will see you next time for lesson 5, which is telementation. That's it for personal influence. Have a good one.